Hello coders, I'm Matt Landers from Covalence, and I'm going to do a getting started walkthrough with Sass for you. So we were in Discord and talking to some students, and they said that we didn't teach Sass in the full stack course, and I said that's crazy. Sass is amazing, we should be teaching it. And I completely thought that we were, but it's actually not in the course. So I'm creating some lectures, labs, and materials just like all of our other content that are going to go into our advanced web development module. So expect those to be there in the next not too long. But I wanted to put a video together to go ahead and get you started and playing in Sass right now. So I just put a little example here together, and we're going to walk through how to set up your project, how Sass works, what it is, and all of that in this video. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I've already got a little website teed up for us that we're going to use Sass on. So let's just look at it real quick. I've just got Bootstrap on here, and I have two pages, a home and an about page. So if we look at the pages, they're pretty boring. Home and about, right? There they are. Nothing really going on there, but we're going to use Sass to style these. So if you don't know what Sass is, Sass allows us to do some cool stuff in CSS that we otherwise wouldn't be able to, that makes it easier to reuse things in CSS, to break up our files into smaller components, to do nesting. There's a lot of things that Sass lets you do that if you do just normal CSS can be very, very tedious. I haven't done regular CSS in a long time. I was using less and then Sass. Bootstrap is actually built with Sass, and that's what I use pretty much in all of my projects. So I'm going to go ahead and run you through a couple of the basics, get you going so that you can start playing around with Sass. Alright, so the first thing that we need to do is have a compiler. So what happens is we write all of our styles in Sass, but the browser doesn't understand what that is. So what we have to do is compile that Sass down to CSS. So we need something to do that for us. So I'm going to turn this project into a node project or an npm project, and the way that we're going to do that is just npm init. So you need to have node installed. If you do npm init and nothing happens here, then that's a problem. And you'll see that created a package JSON over here. If you've been through our course to this point to where you're getting to a module that's doing Sass, then you know what all these commands are. If you don't, you can go through some of those and you'll pick it up pretty quick. But you can just run these commands. But you need to install node.js. That's part of what needs to be installed on your computer. And then the commands that I'm typing will work for you. Alright, then we want to install node-sass, which is an npm module. So node-sass. And we're going to do install. npm I install. And we're just going to save it as a dev dependency. This will go out, create a node modules directory, download node-sass, and get it ready for us to use. Now, if you're on a Mac, I believe you can just type node-sass right now and it will work. Now, that's not working for me, as you can see. It's not recognized as a command. But if you say npx node-sass, that will pull from your local node modules folder and it will actually work. Now, but it's not working because we didn't send anything in, but we can tell that the command is now there and ready for us to use it. npx just says, hey, use what's in my local node modules bin in order to execute this command. So that's what I did here instead of npm. Pretty cool little handy thing if you don't want to install something globally. You could install this globally and it would just work on the command line no matter where you were. Just didn't want to do that here. Alright, so now we need some Sass files. So the first thing that we're going to do, let's go ahead and just do very, very basic Sass files. So I'm just going to do app.scss, just so I don't confuse anything. And in here we're going to do something that would be invalid CSS, but it's going to work for us. So let's say on our pages, you'll notice that the headers aren't centered. We want to center these. So what we could do is say main, and then we'll do h1, text align, center. So what we're saying is that any h1s inside of a main element, are going to be centered. So if I save this, we're going to go over here and just look at this. So basically we have a main element here, and then we have an h1 here. So when we nest like this, this allows us to This is something that would be invalid CSS, but it says that only change H1s that are inside of a main element. Normally the CSS would look like .main, or not .main, but main H1 and then text align, right? This is how we would do it. But Sass lets us nest things like this, and it figures out what the actual CSS should be. And it makes a lot more sense logically when you're looking at this, that I can nest things together, and then that will help me to remember what my specificity is a lot easier. All right, so now let's go ahead and compile this. So I have app.css, and if we come over to our command line, we can type node-sass. We're going to compile the app.scss file, and we're going to output it to a CSS directory. So this is just saying, hey, what file do you want me to look at? I want you to look at this app.css file, and I want to output it to a CSS directory. And when we run that, we'll see that it created the CSS directory and an app.css file. That way our HTML can actually just look at the CSS file, because it doesn't know what a SCSS file is, and it doesn't know the format of Sass. So if we look in here, it actually did do that exactly like we would expect based on that nesting. So now if we go and run our website, everything is centered now, so on home and about. And the reason for that too is that I already have this linked up here. It was ready to have that file, that app.css file there. Now, one really cool feature about using Sass is that we can start to break up our CSS files easier and just reference this one file. I don't like having to reference tons of files everywhere, and I like to break up my code and make it more easier to maintain. So let's see how we could do that, because I would never do it like this. So let's go ahead and create a folder, and we'll call it SCSS. And then we're going to create another folder inside of that called Pages, and we'll create another folder inside of that. And this is just to show some things, how you could actually use this to start to organize your CSS. So I'm going to move this app CSS into SCSS folder. And I'm just going to get rid of this in here and move it over to a new file in utils. And I'm going to say underscore typography. Now, you don't have to say underscore here, but we're going to watch this directory, and the underscore will prevent all of these files from being compiled individually when we start watching. That'll make more sense here in a minute, but just let's go ahead and create all the files. In the typography, we're going to paste what we had in the app CSS in here. So typography is just going to be for any of our fonts, headers, anything that is global to our project. To every page on the site. Like we wanted to center all H1s in that case. So it's not specific to a page, it's for the whole site. So I'm going to save that. Then we're going to create a new file for each page. So home.scss and about.scss. And I'm putting the underscores on these. All right. Now let's go ahead and get this set up to compile. In app.css, what we're going to do is we're going to import these other files. So if we say @import, and this works similar to like ES6 imports or something you might use in TypeScript, and it's going to allow us to import these other files into this one file. So app.css isn't going to have any styles in it directly. We're going to just import other files in here that have styles. So we're going to say /util/typography, and you don't have to put the underscore here, and you don't have to put the ending. So I'm just putting the util/typography. And then I'm going to do pages/about. And pages/home. So now we got this set up how we want it. And we're still compiling over here. Let's put some stuff into these files, the home and about. So we're going to change the background color of that section. So in each of these, we're going to wrap them in a class with the name of the actual page. So home, every style that we put in here is going to be wrapped in .home. And if we look at the HTML, you'll see that the main has a class.home on it. And the reason that we're going to do this is that all of the HTML on the home page is going to go in this main section. This will allow us to make sure that any styles that we put in this file don't overwrite styles on another page. Right? That's one of the problems you have with global CSS, is that somebody may say, I want to use this style name, and somebody else may use it, and they may clash with each other, and you won't know why one's working and one's not. It doesn't have the expected results, and that could happen after you have tons and tons of CSS. This will prevent that from ever happening. This alone makes it worth it to use Sass. So let's see how this will work. So we're going to go ahead and put .hero here. Change our background to the Covalence blue. And we're going to go to our About page and do the same thing. So I'm going to copy this. I'm just going to change this to About. And this one to just red. All right, so now we have something in all of these files. All right, we haven't compiled again because we're not watching it. So we have to compile this again. So we're just going to say same thing in this case, and we come back over, I don't have to save all of our files. Oh, no input file was found. Yeah, I moved the file into the SCSS directory, so I was like, oh no, here we go. All right, and then there we go. So now we have these styles that have made it into this CSS file. You'll notice that they didn't compile, they all compiled into this one file, even though I have all of these different files here. So this is from typography, this is from About, this is from Home. Now let's see if this is working. And there we go. So we have all of those styles working. The cool part about this is, imagine here that we were going to use hero on both of these pages, and one needed to be blue, one needed to be red. Well, that wouldn't work for us because they would overwrite each other. We'd have to do like home hero, right? And then that gets kind of messy. Or we could go in CSS and actually put the specificity in there that we wanted. Now we can do other things here as well. We can keep nesting under hero, or we can add other styles here that we want to do. We could say under home, I want all columns, because I'm using Bootstrap. I can say I want them to be height 100, view height. Now this is only going to happen on home, even though both of them use call, right? So I got to go compile this again. And you notice every time I make a change right now, I've got to come compile it. And we're going to fix that here in just a second. So now when I run this again, I'm an idiot. I don't know why I treated that like an element, but it should be .call. And save that, come back, and it is working now. All right, so we can see that when I go to About, that's not happening, even though About is also using the call class, right? And the reason for that was that we have that specificity now. And this can be really cumbersome and hard to recognize whenever you're doing just normal CSS. If you wanted to see everything that was specified in this way, you would have to go and look at every single class. But if we nest things, it works a lot more like our code would work, right? So that's really cool about this, that you'll use a lot. Now, one of the things that we've been having to do is compile every single time over here. We don't want to have to do that. So what we can do instead is have this here, and then we're going to say .wo, and then that's going to watch. Now this is going to just continue to run, and then anytime we save a file, it's going to compile again. So you see that it compiled. If I just save this file, compiled. So let's just change About to, and I'm not going to compile, I'm not doing anything, it's just running over there, and we'll change this to yellow. And we'll go back over, and there we go, it's working. So that's going to save you a lot of headache, because you may forget to compile, go refresh your page, and then nothing's happening, and it'll drive you absolutely insane. So using that watch will definitely help you there. And you could put that in your package JSON as a script as well, so that you could just run it as an npm run like watch CSS, which let's just go ahead and do that. So to show you. So I might put like watch CSS here, and I might just copy this command here. And then when we come over here, it would look more standard of the things that you're used to running. And now it's running and waiting just by npm run. And then we could use this and do other things in here for our build processes, but we're not going to get into build processes in this video because that's a whole nother thing to worry about. A lot more complex. All right, so let's look at one other cool thing you can do with Sass that you're probably going to be doing. You know, it's really hard to theme a site, like change a theme on a site if you have a bunch of CSS out there, because if you need to change a primary color, so like accents and or a secondary color, and you want to change these things, you got to go change all the classes in your CSS, or do like a find and replace on one color and change it to another, and that's not very friendly. So what we can do here is put a new file and call it variables. And then we can define a few variables here. So let's say we said primary, and we'll put that cool color. And we'll say secondary. And we'll change this to green so we can see this happen. Now, when we go over to our pages, we can import these variables. So I can import these here. So at import /variables. And instead of putting yellow here, I'll put secondary. And that will reference our variable over here, secondary. Then in home, I'll do the same thing. Except here, I'll do primary. All right, we probably need to restart this since we added a new file, but let's just see what happened. This should be green now. Oh, and it is green. All right, pretty cool. So now we can go in and change that variable, and that's it here. So if I change this back to red, now it's not going to be watching that, so just go ahead and just restart that. The reason is that I created the variables file after we started watching, so it didn't know to watch that file anymore. So now whenever we run the about, we didn't save it, and then there we go. So all we had to do in that case was change this variable. This is really cool and really powerful. Think of all the things that you could do with variables now. If you had a lot of CSS and a theme, you could change just these variables and change things across the entire site on any page. That's pretty powerful and pretty awesome. Now in Sass, there's a lot of different things, not just these things I've shown you that you can do. And in the course, I'll be doing lectures over a lot of those different concepts and show you how to use placeholders and mix-ins and functions and all of those things, and they'll be broken out into their own little lectures with some labs and drills around them. So be on the lookout for that. If you're in the course, if you're not, go ahead, sign up, do a free trial, come check it out, and look forward to creating that course and having you guys use Sass. I wouldn't write a site or anything without it. I mean, it would be, I just can't imagine doing raw CSS these days. It's really cool and really powerful. So go ahead, follow this video, do the walkthroughs, start playing with it, give me some feedback and the things that you might want in that part of the course, in that module, and I'll make sure they make it in there. So have fun styling your pages with Sass. Get sassy now.